operating mills for non-homestead are always 18 mills is what we levy. We had a .986 rollback this year. We've been in rollbacks now. I think we're on about our 4th year of rollbacks. That rolled back the original millage from May 5th, 2015 to 18.0516, and then the one that was passed on March 10th, 2020, we rolled back that to 7.7941. The renewal is up on both of those on 12/31/2025. The debt mill is 7 mills, and then our taxable value went from 2.3 billion to 2.4 billion, which is a 5.72 taxable value increase, which is the largest taxable value increase we've seen in several years. It's not been over 5 yet. So, and then, do you have any questions on this slide about our levy or any of our operating mills or rollbacks? Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next slide. We added a slide this year, a refunding, because there's been some questions about all the refundings that we've been doing over the years. And so these are our savings. We have completed, since 2005, 11 refundings of a net savings of almost 19 million and an estimated interest cost avoidance of 11.6 million, and the net savings plus the interest cost avoidance puts you then at about 30.5 million. And then the estimated years reduction is about 11 years for our mandatory payout dates. We've been able to reduce it 11 years since 2005 with 11 refundings. And this put us at a refunding loan percentage savings of 5.79%. So it's been very successful since 2005, and we've been able to save the taxpayers $30 million with the interest and the savings. That is the end of my public tax hearing. If we have any questions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the second slide. We've been asking about that, so
So it seemed like a good place to incorporate in the, since it's about taxes.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
We will be in recess until 7 o'clock. Yeah.
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That sounded very good. What? I don't know. This is on, right? Can you hear me? No, you can't hear me.
Yeah, I don't think it's on.
Eh.
Just talk loud.
Just talk loud, says Mr. Heyer. Okay. Mrs. McLean, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Heyer?
Here.
Mr. Need?
Here.
Mrs. Crane?
Here.
Mrs. Egan? Ms. Catalina?
Here.
Mrs. McGinnis?
Here.
Mrs. Horst?
Here. Mrs. Egan sends her apologies for not being here this evening. She is still isolating after a COVID-19 diagnosis, but assures us her symptoms are mild and she will return shortly. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community hearing. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda items 3 and 9. Item 2 is approval of the consent agenda. I was supposed to pause. May I have a motion, please?
I will preempt your motion and
Thank you.
move to add item 2.3.5, expulsion of a Clarkston High School student to the agenda tonight as provided.
Support. Thank you. Just all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries as amended.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you.
Support.
Okay, all in favor of the,
You need a roll call.
oh, I'm sorry, now I need a roll call vote, sorry. That's right. Mrs. McLean, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. McGinnis?
Yes.
Ms. Catalina?
Yes.
Mrs. Crane?
Yes.
Mr. Need?
Yes.
Mrs. Egan? Mr. Heyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Horst?
Yes. The motion carries. Item 3 is citizens' request to address the board. You are given 2 opportunities to address the board. Under item 3.1, you can request to address the board on any topic that's on tonight's agenda. Under item 9, you are welcome to address the board on any topic. When making comments, please state your name and address. Direct your comments to Mrs. Kelly Horst, Board President. Each person may speak for up to 2 minutes. Per established procedures, the board will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment. Our sign-up sheet is over here on the side table, and while Mrs. McLean is retrieving it, I know we have some new folks here in the audience tonight, so Ms. McLean, if you'll hold on just one moment, because I made this mistake last month when we had new audience members. This is the only time you're able to sign up to speak on the agenda tonight. So if there is an item on tonight's agenda, now is the time to make your way over there. I cut some people off last month because I was hasty in retrieving the sign-up sheet. You will still be able to sign up throughout the meeting if you wish to address the board when we get to item 9 on any topic, but this is the moment if you wish to address the board on the topics that are on the agenda. I think I spoke on that long enough. I don't see anyone rushing. Mrs. McLean, thank you so much. You may now retrieve that. And just by way of reminder, if you do intend to address the board tonight, let me reiterate that calling out individuals in this forum is inappropriate. Thank you very much. And personal attacks will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in criticism or a personal attack of an individual, whether by name or any other means of identification, will be stopped and prevented from doing so. We appreciate that you keep your remarks and your attention directed up here at the board. And so I only have one gentleman who has signed up, Mr. Parkin, hello. And so we'll get to you when we get to item 9. So we will move on then to item 4, Superintendent Update. Dr. Ryan.
Thank you, President Horace. I have a real brief update this evening. First, I want to welcome everybody for your attendance. Looking for the school district, I'm super excited as we're on the start of our we'll call it final approach for our seniors and for our schools into May. And this past Thursday, I had an opportunity to be part of the senior awards at Clarkston High School. And I just want our community to know not how proud I am as superintendent and representing our Board of Education there as well of our seniors. It's just amazing to see how many students we have that will be studying internationally at Ivy League, onto the military, amazing array and amount of scholarships. And I also tip my hat to our elementary schools across this district. I see some representation in the back row tonight who individually raised from the teaching staff and the staff in those buildings scholarships for seniors, and they track, and it's really kind of amazing to see, and North Sash to see represented here as well tonight, of how they track the students from when they leave the elementary program all the way when they're on to their next big adventure. And it's exciting to see the staff and how they light up and the students as far as a little reunited, and then they give them that kind of level of support moving forward. But I was amazingly impressed, and also just how strong our community, whether it's the Garden Club, the Optimists, Clarkson Foundation, a number of foundations within the Clarkson area that does an amazing amount to support the kids of Clarkson as they transition to adulthood. The word I would say that I left there that night is feeling not only a sense of pride, but a sense of community. And it's really neat to see how Clarkson really rallies around the children. And I think that's why, not surprisingly, I always report every year of how many of our students come back into our teaching ranks, and that we see that are still engaged at one level or another in our school district. So that was incredibly impressive. It's also nice to see everybody's unmasked face and all together in these events. And also, looking as we're into spring sports season and the weather, I think I can finally report that winter is over for Clarkston. It was a long, kind of grueling as far as the weather, and to see all the full spring sports and the kids outside enjoying the sunshine on recess and everything today, just amazing thing to report. So again, lots of positive vibes to share, and I look forward as we get that final approach to the end of the school year with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of excitement. So thank you, President Horst.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Ryan. We have one presentation tonight, item 5.1, our North Sashaba Destination Imagination Team. Our state champion Destination Imagination Team is here to share their experiences with us. Let me call up Samantha Morrison, the team manager, and the Bumblebee Squad from North Sashaba Elementary.
Good evening. We are the Busy Bees, a group of 5th graders from North Sashaba Elementary. This is our first year competing in North Sashaba and competing in Destination Imagination. Hi, I'm Loki Smith. I'm Mr. Lloyd. I'm Blue. I'm Loki Davis. I'm Tyler O'Connor. Next to my class, I'm Helen Stanley. Destination Imagination is an academic educational program where students compete to solve open-ended, STEAM-focused challenges and present their solutions at tournaments.
STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics.
We chose a technical challenge which prompted us
questions or
I have
comments?
a question. For you fifth graders, what advice would you give to your fourth grade underclassmen if they were considering doing Destination Imagination next year?
Who like something every year, because they couldn't get really hard. You should stick through it all the way, because even though there's challenges through the way, you should always stick together and continue to act like a bigger family.
Awesome.
So what was the most surprising moment? What was the best moment so far? Go ahead. Yeah, no kidding. Anyone else? A favorite memory? Yeah, go ahead.
And we get to celebrate.
And you get to celebrate.
Mhm.
Fantastic, yeah.
One of my favorite memories is just learning about the eye and asking if everybody was announced when they were sitting at some meetings last week.
Yeah.
Fantastic, go ahead.
The first day of the eye, because I think about it every time in the eye and how much we feel.
Fantastic. Anyone else have questions for our team?
Madam President, I'd like to ask, what is the best thing that anybody in our community can do to help save the bees?
Oh.
Just stop using pesticides.
Oh.
And plant more flowers.
Okay.
Make sure that there are no humors and that we should protect the bees and make them more not endangered species, because without the bees we lose a lot of crops and we could start losing our society that needs so also don't aggravate them, because if we see them,
That's the hardest one for me.
too.
Don't aggravate the bees. Okay, I'll try to work on that one. All right, we wish you the very best of luck in St. Louis. We're all rooting for you. You let us
Absolutely.
know. You got to let us know how it goes. I'm Kansas City. Why did I say St. Louis?
Well, over the bridge.
Okay. Will you let us know how it goes? Okay, it's next weekend, right?
Good luck.
Okay.
Go Bumblebees.
We have some treats for you. Will you come up and let us all wish you good luck?
Will you help me?
You hand those out. We have treats. Just keep walking. Oh wait, I have a sticker too.
Jason, that's you.
Yeah, safe travels. Thank
Did I
you
give
for
you the?
coaching.
Oh my goodness.
My sister-in-law does Odyssey of the Mind. It's a lot.
Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, Mason.
Congratulations.
All right, you guys have an
Good
awesome
luck.
time.
Represent
Have an
Clarkston.
awesome time. Thank you for representing Clarkston. Did I give everybody a chocolate? Did everybody get a chocolate?
Well done.
Okay. I
Yeah.
have one extra chocolate.
Good luck.
Lucas?
You had a 50-50.
Good luck.
Good luck, buddy. Yeah.
Good
here.
luck.
Pick it up. Enjoy it. Good luck.
You're welcome. Congratulations. You're welcome.
Ms. Johnson?
Steve's got.
No.
Can't get in trouble.
Oh, isn't that the best?
Pass it down in case somebody else wants it down there.
There's one down there.
No, I'm good. All right.
Do you want to dismiss them? I'd like to go.
Students, we're certainly welcome. You know, you're welcome to stay, but if you want to go ahead and go, we certainly understand. So we'll pause for just 1 minute while you guys collect yourselves.
Get that homework
did
done. Maybe take a
everybody
walk
get a chocolate?
outside.
I had one extra. Did everyone get their chocolate? Okay. All right. Ms. Johnson, would you like a chocolate? It's your school. You good? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, North Sash. It's such a thrill to have you here. Good luck.
It's your team too. Wow.
Oh, I love love having students back in the room. That's
So
the
nice.
best. Okay, we'll move on to our action items. 6.1 is approval of personnel changes. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the personnel changes as listed on the attached sheets.
Support.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Lucido? All right, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6.2 is approval of funding for the additional school resource officer. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approves the funding for an additional school resource officer for the district beginning in the 22-23 school year as presented.
Support.
Now remember, last month we approved the concept, the exploration of this, and the township approved it as well, so here we are to actually approve the execution. Great. Any further questions or comments from the board? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, sorry, aye as well. Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 6.3 is approval of construction technology purchase, cabinetry and countertops for the Bailey House. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approves the purchase of cabinetry, countertops, and hardware for the Bailey House property in the amount of $30,890 as presented.
Support.
Any questions or comments from the board? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6.4 is approval of purchase of servers for the district security camera system. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education authorize the administration to execute a contract to Interstate Security for upgrades to our security camera servers in the amount of $73,653 as presented.
Support.
Any questions or comments for the administration? All right. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6.5 is approval of resolution regarding the bus installment purchase. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approves the attached resolution to authorize issuance of the installment purchase agreement for the purchase of 18 2023 77-passenger school buses, Model 341T, from Hoekstra Transportation Incorporated, in an amount not to exceed $1,776,150 as presented.
Support.
Any questions or discussion? All right, Mrs. McLean, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Need,
Yes.
Ms. Catalina,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Hyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Crane,
Yes.
Mrs. Egan, Mrs. Horstman.
Yes, that motion carries. Item 6.6 is approval of the 2022 summer tax levy. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education adopts the resolution to continue the process of 100% of summer tax collection until revoked by the school district.
Support. Any questions or discussion from the board? And I think it might be worth repeating, since our public tax hearing was a bit sparsely attended at 6:30. I really was very fond of hearing from Ms. Rogers that of our 11 refundings over the past, 10 years, that the district has saved our taxpayers more than $30 million in terms of pure savings and interest avoidance. So I thought that was a bit of good news to share. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item 6.7 is approval of resolution regarding the Oakland Schools budget. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Parks and Community Schools Board of Education approves the attached resolution to approve the Oakland Schools 2022-23 general fund operating budget as submitted.
Support.
Mrs. McGinnis, I know you're our liaison for that. Was there anything of significance, highlights, anything to
I do. Let me
Sure.
get to my notes here, please.
Okay.
An overview of the ISD budget is that the projections are based on a 4% property tax revenue growth with the potential of Headley rollbacks for the operating millage as from 20 to 23, as we've seen with our own Headley rollback. This occurs when the annual growth on existing properties is greater than the rate of inflation as measured by the Consumer Price Index. Some of the major features of the proposed budget are: number one, social, emotional well-being and mental health support by adding 2 mental health consultants. These positions will be used to broaden support of mental health workers in schools under the 31N of the Revised School Aid Act. Number two, career and technical education in support of alignment with the Michigan Department of Education's top 10 and 10-year goals and strategies. Additional resources in these areas are being distributed. And number three, the focus on cybersecurity. These are just 3 of the highlight items that are on this proposed budget, and I recommend approval for this budget for the FY 22-23 school year.
Thank you, Mrs. McGinnis. Any other comments or discussion from the board? No. This is an annual state requirement for boards to approve.
That
Right.
has no has no legal effect whatsoever.
Right, absolutely none, but yet here we are, so. Look, Mr. Need said it. Okay, that's right. All right. Mrs. McLean, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Catalina?
Yes.
Mrs. Crane?
Yes.
Mrs. Egan? Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Need?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mrs. Horst?
Yes, the motion carries. Item 6.8 is approval of resolution opposing voucher initiatives. Mrs. McGinnis.
Is there a bar? It's not coming up in my, somebody want to make a motion of the bar, and then I'll give you supporting information regarding it?
I move that the Board of Education approves the attached resolution
Oh, sorry.
opposing Let Michigan MI Kids Learn Voucher Initiatives as presented.
Support.
Thank you, sorry, I skipped
That's
that part.
okay.
Right, okay, thank you, Ms.
I don't know
McGinnis.
how my copy doesn't have a copy, so thank you,
You're
Ms. Crane. This proposed voucher initiative urges Michigan voters to decline, or the organization that is supporting, not supporting the proposal, is urging Michigan voters to decline in a request to sign the Let Michigan Kids Learn ballot petition that is currently being circulated. The first petition would allow tax write-offs for contributions to scholarships granting organizations, and the second one would create student opportunity scholarships that parents would need to apply for. This currently violates the Michigan Constitution by creating indirect aid to non-public schools. This initiative would pull monies from public schools and be funded into a fund for vouchers that students could take to private schools. The result is public tax dollars financing private, unaccountable private and charter schools, many for profit. The fund would be built by donations from people and corporations who would get big tax breaks, which is how the money is taken from the public school aid fund. Eligible private school students would receive up to $7,830 per year of the public per pupil allocation for public schools. Eligible public school students would receive $500 scholarships, or $1,100 for those in special ed. The eligibility is limited to students whose family income fall below 200% of the limits for free and reduced lunch. Therefore, a family of 4 earning less than $98,000 would be eligible. This proposal runs up against the Blaine Amendment, which currently appears in 37 state constitutions that bans states from sending public money to private or religious schools. Michigan's Bain Amendment is the most restrictive in the country. Michigan's Bain Amendment precisely prohibits even indirect funding of private schools, whether through payment, credit, tax benefit, exemptions or deductions, tuitions, vouchers, grants, subsidies, or loans. In 2000, an attempt was made by the DeVos family, who is also backing this initiative, that they spent nearly $13 million to try to bring vouchers to the state of Michigan, and it was opposed by 69% of the population at the time. Therefore, as this also runs consistent with both our state, local, and county initiatives through our national association, our state association, and our county association, I urge this board to support this resolution.
All right. Thank you, Ms. McGinnis. Are there other comments or any other discussion regarding this resolution?
I would just add that I think the process by which this is moving forward is kind of ridiculous in that we have a system of legislature introducing legislation. It has to be passed by 2 chambers and an executive and the governor, and this is an end around the normal check and balance process to have 300-some thousand people sign something and overrule a veto, which doesn't make any sense to me at how our governing process is supposed to go. I think it flies in the face of the checks and balances. And while I completely disagree with the nature of what is going forward for all the reasons stated, the process is what really infuriates me, because I feel like my input is to not sign. Well, that's not democracy and how things work.
I'd say from a resolution standpoint, I mean, I think everything you said makes absolute perfect sense, and Mr. Heyer, I totally agree with you. I don't like these tricks. I mean, put it before the voters and let them decide. There's a sentence in the 3rd paragraph that I'm not wild about. I think it's kind of a snarky comment, and I think we've really prided ourselves on being professional and persuasive where it comes in, and so my preference would be to take that sentence out. The one that talks about turning private schools into tax shelters for the wealthy, I just think that's kind of an unnecessary sort of little dig. But you know, I would certainly go with where my colleagues fall on that. But I support the resolution.
Madam President, as the maker of the motion, I have no problem removing that suggested line in this resolution to be more consistent with the values of this board. So I support that recommendation.
Who seconded?
I agree with Mrs. Hoar's point that the first part of that, whereas, is fine, which speaks to the 69% rejection. I think the last part is unnecessary, and I would also prefer it be deleted.
So would you delete everything after the word "and"?
Mm-hmm.
Like the last
put
2
period at
lines in the
non-public
word
schools.
"and"?
Yes,
Okay. And that was, we could do that with a friendly amendment?
Correct.
okay,
So done.
so done. Excellent. Okay. All right, so Mrs. McLean, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mrs. Callahan,
Yes.
Mrs. Egan, Mrs. Crane,
Yes.
Mr. Heyer,
Yes.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. Rose.
Yes. The motion carries with the friendly amendment. All right, thank you, everyone. We got through a lot of action. 7 is report items. We have none tonight. 8 is discussion items. We have 1, our 8.1 facilities update. So we'll have Mr. Goodman, Mr. McNaughton, and Mrs. Allen come up and take us through the latest on our facilities planning.
Mrs. Kimball.
Wes
Oh,
Goodman.
Mrs. Kimmel.
Yep,
Oh, hello,
there
I'm
you go.
sorry.
Ms. Kimmel will be in place of Mr.
Oh,
Goodman.
sorry
this
Just
about
real
that.
quick, we have a good lineup here. Wes Goodman is not here tonight, but we have Tom Vandergrind from GMB, our architect. We have Sean Verlinden from AUK Construction, and then Kelly Allen and RJ from PFM to do a presentation that you'll see to follow.
Sorry, I should have looked up and seen who was in the audience instead of looking at my paper. Good evening, everyone.
All right. We are ready. This is going to be exciting, I think. We've got update from the master plan work we've been doing for you guys. And primarily we're going to show you some the work we've done is prioritization of the scope that we've been working on with your group. Some refinement of that, some refinement of the constructability and the schedule and how that affects this stuff. And then we've done some work on cost refinement as well for what this master plan that we're recommending would look like. And then we're going to cover some funding evaluation that RJ is looking at, and then some more increased or continued survey input as to where we're headed and what things look like. So left or right? There we go. So just a reminder a little bit again, where we've been, how we got there. The survey started actually the end of 2020, the master plan update. Heavily working in January of 21. We started reviewing and verifying the master plan that we worked on. And that was the 2016 master plan. And I will say things have really continued very consistently, which has been encouraging. So this 2016 master plan has just grown, but a consistent message throughout. Again, we started that in the beginning of January of 21, went through building evaluations, walkthroughs again, looked at the buildings, met with your staff, principals, directors, et cetera, to verify the master plan. Is it still accurate? Are there tweaks that need to be made? Then we updated that by the end of 2021. You saw that update with all it's pretty difficult to look at the change because it's a big document, 70-some pages. But that's a complete district analysis of all the needs as it relates to facility, not educational goals in terms of curriculum, but the facility needs. So then we took that, and of that, again, from 2016, a big theme was the junior high. It's a big deal, and it wanted to be replaced in 2016, but did not fit at that time. But it needed a lot of evaluation. So if you recall, you gave us some direction to really study the junior high with your staff. What's the right building to, if we're going to replace it, what's the right thing to do? So we spent a lot of time studying the site, how to make that keep you in business in that existing building, but yet create a new, at least majority of the building potentially new. So that took a lot of time, went through that evaluation with the team that's here. Then we moved on into prioritization of the rest of the master plan. What are the critical needs for that master plan? Your staff, when we reviewed the master plan with them initially, they gave us a lot of insight already as to things we could tell. These are really, for me, high priorities. So the master plan already started with a good set of, these are probably the things that are critical needs to your staff. Then we took the plan with your administration and went through it and figured out all of the critical needs that we're recommending be part of something that we move forward with. Those critical needs were developed basically things that are heavily useful life within 5 years. And so these are things that are going to become issues for you to deal with within 5 years. So it's like things that if we don't deal with these right now, they're going to end up being a tax on your general fund. How are we going to deal with this stuff? This stuff is critical needs fairly soon, and you're going to end up having to take money from the classroom to pay for some of this stuff. So that was a big priority criteria for how to pull together this list of items for you. The themes that came out of it from your group was basically 4 themes, and we did bring these to you before, but I'll just repeat them. The first one was safety and security. There was just continued development of what we did in 2016, not wholesale, but just continued development of the stuff that we had done for safety and security. It did include a little bit of a tweak to add some more air quality things in the buildings. That's become a thing that people are more interested in. It's looking at air quality in the classrooms especially, and then air conditioning as well for the classroom spaces. Second priority was a junior high, again addressing that, and I will state again, that was a priority from 2016, but just didn't fit into that timing. The next criteria was aging systems, things that are basically wearing out. And again, that criteria was, this has probably got a 5-year need where some of these things are going to be expiring. And then the last one was technology and upgrades for that, which really are very similarly useful life issues. It's technology that only has a certain useful life, and you need to be prepared for some things that are coming due, again, as it relates to technology. So those were the master plan components that we went through. Then the last thing we did is also touch base again with some surveys. And Kelly did some of that last time to look at how does your staff and your community look at the priorities. And very fortunately, they were very aligned with what the original master plan came out with from your staff, where we had worked with more of your leaders. So that was good. We moved forward. The priorities were very similar to what community and parents thought were the priorities for the master plan. So in that master plan, I think we presented this to you last time as well, all the district needs come into around a little over $400 million, $420 million. That's all the facility needs, that entire list. Again, that high priority piece, we looked at really focusing more on the 5-year need and those key themes, the ones I just listed there. Again, safety and security was just building on what we'd already done, a few more additional things to improve that, including the air conditioning, the air quality. And then the junior high, again, is being recommended as a 90% replacement. I'll get into a little bit of detail here in the scope in a second, but it's keeping a little bit of it, but the majority of it replacement. And then the aging building systems, which again is useful life, things that are failing, and similar idea for technology. The list that makes those components there that fall in that 5-year kind of a category come, and Sean will talk about this in a little bit, to the math, but come to, you can see there just a little over 197 million in terms of that recommendation that we have at this point for continuing with the portion of the master plan that should be addressed. So the next piece I'm going to go through is showing you a little bit of the scope, not every nut and bolt, but what those critical needs are for each building. And the critical needs are organized with some parity as well. So when you see some of the numbers, they're not exactly the same numbers for every elementary, because not every elementary is the same size. Not every elementary has the same amount of, let's say, roofing that's ready to be repaired. When we do our analysis, there's roofing that's ready to be repaired within 5 years. There's a different amounts of it at different buildings. So that's an example of why are the numbers a little bit different. It's just same kind of thing, which Clarkson's always told us to do, is parity across the buildings, make sure you're looking at those kind of things similarly. So this is the scope for all the elementaries. For the most part, they all have these components, a little bit different quantities, as I mentioned. Safety and security, again, air conditioning and improved air quality, especially for the classrooms. Window blinds, some security issues there. Door hardware is similar. It's replacement of things that are for security, specifically some things we're going to do that let you know the door is locked. It's a very, in a panic situation, people can't find their keys. They don't know if the door is locked. They don't know how to deal with that. This is a system where it's just a simple thumb turn, and it's very obvious the door is locked. Anybody in the room, even a visitor, can know and do that. So it's a big deal for security. It's one little thing that we want to do. It doesn't cost a lot, but it'll enhance the security for all the buildings. Again, for the elementary, some card access controls, and then some generator circuits. We're going to add some generator circuits to the buildings that allow, in the instance of a power loss, that the generator can provide power for more of the life safety systems, critical systems that should be up and running when the power is down. So that's providing more electrical circuits to those items. And then some upgrades of fire alarm systems. And then again, the next is the list of building systems that are aging and ready for replacement, portions of the roofing, some of the doors, some mechanical systems, and then the clock systems. Some of the buildings have clock needs, and then some exterior paving and walks. And then the last component for the elementaries is technology. Again, is really useful life issues for some of the technology components. The middle school is very similar in scope. Safety and security is that air conditioning and improved air quality. Window blinds, same door hardware components, card access controls, those generator circuits, same kind of components. It does have a little more ADA upgrades that are needed at that building. There's some ADA population that has some things that aren't quite appropriate that should be dealt with for that population. Aging building systems are very similar to the others at the elementary. The roofing, some doors, mechanical systems, and some paving that's ready for upgrade, and similar technology. So the junior high, a little bit different, obviously, as we talked about with its life. We did again identify this need in 2016, and that has not changed. At the time, in 2016, we were thinking we wanted to try to figure out how to look at this replacement. It just did not fit in the bond without any kind of a tax increase. It was not something we were looking for, and so that had to be postponed. We did spend serious effort, though, of keeping that in mind. We minimized those dollars that were spent on that building from the 2016 bond. Very, very little in terms of infrastructure, because we knew we would have to deal with that the next time somewhere down the road when we address the master plan, which we're suggesting is ready now. The only thing we did in 2016 substantially was we spent some money on furniture, knowing that it would really help the environment, so the classrooms would be a better learning environment for the kids immediately. And that stuff could all be moved to anything that gets done in this phase with new construction. So it wasn't something that would get thrown away. So we minimized anything that would be thrown away for the junior high. Some of the thoughts about the building as well. I'm going back to the first point there. We are looking at replacing an aged building with new construction. There are some efficiency things there. I could replace the mechanical systems in that building, but the infrastructure of that building is old and would not be as efficient as a new building. So even with some replacement remodel of that building, you're not going to get the efficiencies you would of a new building. And that was one of the components that did really help see the value of this plan to replace the majority of that building. Today as well, the renovation costs of that project we looked at to substantially renovate it, to bring it up to today's standards, was seriously approaching way too close to the value of a new building. And so it was like, I couldn't tell you in good conscience that was good money spent. The building is 63 years old today, and it was built in the 50s. The 50s and 60s are renowned for being cheap construction. Actually, stuff earlier, Renaissance era, those were much better built buildings. They have a lot more ADA issues, but they were very solid buildings. 50s and 60s was the cheapest era of construction in school that we had. So that building is of that era, not well built. All those buildings of that era were kind of that way. And they worked, they were fast. You know, that time of the country was just building the buildings fast. We're trying to get a lot of space, but they just weren't built to last long term. Again, it's 63 years old now. If we were to put money into it, I would recommend it's a bad investment. You're going to be asking yourselves to live with that building another 30 years. You're going to be approaching 100 years old of that building if we were to put money into it now. And I just, that in my mind, that's a bad investment in terms of my recommendation to you. There's a lot of infrastructure issues going on too that are underground in that building. There's a lot of things done with electrical and plumbing that are caving in, they're failing, and they're under the structure. Not something you can fix without tearing it all apart, which leads you again to some of these extended costs for renovating that project. We spent some time looking at the auditorium. It is in good shape and not that old, and so the plan we made to try to help the cost of it is to maintain that and use that as the anchor of the building in terms of the end of the building. And then we have a whole system we worked on heavily with Sean and his group of how to renovate and keep you in business. But we would keep the auditorium and then build new. The other component that is quite usable is the construction trades area. It is very similar to what we would build now for construction trades. So we're going to renovate that and expand that. But those two areas are pieces we're going to reuse. And then for the most part, the rest of the building over time has a phasing where it gets replaced. One of the things what are some benefits as well for this idea of replacing it is the ADA accessibility. The building now does not have a very appropriate ADA accessibility. A lot of stairs and ramps and things that are manageable, but they're not done maybe to what we would like to see today. So in our new design, we would look at trying to minimize levels. There still are going to be some levels, but you do it with more appropriate ADA access with elevators that are really more to code what you should be providing people of that population. The other piece we're looking at is improving the site traffic, trying to really help separate buses and parents, which is if you've been on that site, you all know, you've all been there. It's a congested mess. And trying to separate those and with a new design, bring people to different areas because we have a different design of a building, we can help alleviate that site traffic congestion. And then the last one, which I have a lot of passion for, I think is very important, is a very much updated educational facility, 21st century concepts. The classrooms are very small. Classrooms in that era were done where people sat at a tablet armchair and just took notes from the teacher at a chalkboard. The kids are bigger nowadays. They have more stuff. They have more backpacks. They have, and moving more into project-based learning, there's a lot more activity that happens. And so I'm not just sitting in my seat. You need a lot more room. Your classrooms are small on the small side of life as it look for junior high kids. And so we would provide bigger classrooms, which is the start of that, and then also some collaborative spaces, lab spaces that support project-based learning, those kind of things, and then enhancing the construction trades too. We're looking at improving and enhancing more labs for them to really increase that potential. So a lot of neat things that can happen with the learning environment as well, but I'd say there's a lot of structural things that are maybe the driver for this building as to why it's time. So the high school priorities are similar to the other buildings with a few tweaks. Again, the safety and security component is the air conditioning, improved air quality, the door hardware issues, generator circuits, and then there are some additional ADA things here, just better access. There are some places that are difficult to access for students in the high school that we're going to do some tweaks to make that better for them. The aging building systems are similar, roofing and doors, mechanical systems. Parking lots are a big one at the high school. There's some that are just left that we just couldn't get to with our last bond. Then the tennis courts, we also looked at replacing those last time, but we had to push those off just to keep the 0 mil last time. So we are looking at replacing those tennis courts at the high school this time. And then the building envelope. There is the stucco component to drive the exterior finish system that is failing and peeling off and starting to let water mitigate into the building. And so that's one that's like, it needs to be dealt with. I'd like to start dealing with that piece. But that's the building envelope component. And then again, similar technology and infrastructure issues for them at the high school. So there's a few, for Renaissance, a few items as well that are very similar. Safety and security is the door hardware and the generator circuits. Aging building systems are the doors, clock system, and paving. And then the technology infrastructure. That's at Renaissance. then there's a few miscellaneous projects in the district. The Life Skills Building, the small building right behind the junior high, if you're familiar with that. That building's a very small building, about 3,000 square feet. That building has some roofing needs and some minor interior renovations, and then some exterior walks and paving as well. The Transportation Building has some exterior paving needs and excuse me, some interior renovations that relate to some failing systems, infrastructure systems in that building. And then the last component is some update for new musical instruments be applied basically district-wide. I think the next slide will be for you, Sean.
Hello. So on our end, we're the construction managers. Tom's laid out the critical needs that have been identified, and so we worked with GMB and the district to create an approach to the junior high that we could put an estimate to, put a real number to. You see that up on the screen. In addition, our chief estimator, Jim Shankin, took the critical needs scope and went through and established an estimate for those projects. So you see those on the screen that are broken up by building. There's differences across the buildings for the exact reasons that Tom laid out, that at some buildings there's more roofing, there's more paving, there's more classroom stations that need additional amounts of air conditioning. So those are really the variances that you see there. A few of the buildings do need fire alarm replacement, so there's some dollar differences there. So all in, the assessment of the critical needs and the estimate from our chief estimator, Jim, totaled $197,500,000. As we've reviewed this with GMB and the district, we've talked about, hey, what would be the approach to these projects? We thought that the best plan would be to go right after the junior high. It's obviously the biggest project. It's going to take the longest to construct. It would take about a year to design, and then it would take 4.5 years or so to construct in phases. Overall, we're looking at about 5 to 7 years for all the projects. We believe that we could also take on some of the projects at the elementary schools right off the bat to get the air conditioning in place. So we believe that we would recommend that approach, that we go right after some work that you would see immediately, and then also after the junior high, that would be a project that, a large one that should be started immediately. And so from our end, we've put together a phasing plan for that, and overall, for all the projects, all the design, it'd be about 5 to 7 years to complete all the work laid out in the critical needs list. As a team, we've worked through what we believe are the next steps after this, and we think to continue gathering feedback on the items we've laid out here, and then depending on moving forward, the next step would be to prepare a pre-qualification application for the Treasury, and then to actually go and present to the Treasury. And there's where RJ will come in.
Thank you. I'm RJ Naughton with PFM Financial Advisors. And here is a summary of the proposal. It's marked as preliminary because it really doesn't become official until that preliminary qualification application is presented to Department of Treasury and then brought before the board. So this proposal is $197.5 million, and the bonds are projected to be issued in 3 series of bonds, and the maximum bond term of any series, 25 years. This is projected to be a no-mill increase, and that's done because the district could extend or stay in the school bond loan fund program or school loan revolving fund, and the length of the stay in that school loan revolving fund is contingent on many factors, including future taxable value, the interest rate on the bonds will be fixed interest rate, and the interest rate on the variable rate school loan revolving fund loan. The interest rates shown here for the bonds are higher than the current market interest rates because the bonds would not be sold for several months from now. So there's the bond amount of $197.5 million, and the project amount, which is similar. The project amount is contingent on a few factors, and that is the actual cost of the project, the draws each month, and also the interest earned on bond proceeds. So that is a summary of the bond proposal. I'd like to discuss the proposal itself, because what is going to appear on the ballot would be for a not-to-exceed bond amount, in this case $197.5 million, to be issued in one or more series. And then it'll say for the purpose of, and then there'll be a description of the project. And then below that, there'll be a section for informational purposes only that will refer to the millage in the first year for the bonds expected to be a no mill increase, and also the interest cost estimated for the bonds, and the estimated stay in the school loan revolving fund. So that is a summary of the bond proposal. Before I turn it over to Kelly, any questions?
Trustees, any questions for Madam President? Ms. McGinnis?
So RJ, hopefully I can say what I'm trying to express. Can you explain to the community how you derive the calculation that this would not be a no mill increase based on the average, 5-year average, if I'm correct, of our SCV increases? I know you can do a better job than I can, so if you could explain to the community how that calculation is seeded to give you the result of knowing that we could have a 3-series proposal with a no increase.
Certainly. So one critical factor is projecting the taxable value growth of the district. And Department of Treasury has constraints on how we're allowed to do that for millage purposes. And the good news, by the way, is the change in taxable value for 2022 is a 5.72% increase. That's a substantial increase. The allowable percent change in taxable value for the next 5 years could be up to the 5-year average, historical average at the time of the ballot. And so that 5-year historical average is 4.86%, which is less than what we've experienced with 2022. And for the following years, it is limited to the historical 20-year average, but not less than 0%, not more than 3%. And so for years 6 and beyond, for projection purposes with filings with Department of Treasury, we have to use a 2.3%, which is the 20-year historical average, which I consider very conservative for this community. And why that 20-year average is kind of low is because of what happened during the recession years. So that was a major part of sizing this bond issue, and we decided to do it in 3 series and with 25-year bond terms to have this bond amount and still keep it at a no mill increase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions at this point for Mrs. Allen Stepso? We reserve the right to add questions, though, so don't go anywhere. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We were able to do one more survey for our community. As Tom had mentioned earlier, I was with you guys a few months ago, going through 3 different surveys where we asked our community, our staff, and our students what it was they wanted to see here in our district. And taking what we had gone through with our master plan, measuring it up to the community, seeing how they felt about things, as Tom had mentioned, much of that aligned, and so we moved forward. In this survey particularly, we really wanted to see how people felt about the bond, if it was the same as their feelings about the actual projects that we were presenting to all of them. Overall, we had over 1,300 participants. The percentages are broken down. It is worth noting, though, it is not going to equal 100 because we did allow for individuals to click on multiple. So there are several people within our district that are parents and staff members and community members, giving them the opportunity to click on all of those that apply to them. Within this survey, Of those 1,300, 80% are registered voters within our boundaries. So that's great news to hear that we have so many of the individuals that work with us and are here in our community are registered voters. And the participation was spread throughout the district relative to the size of the buildings. So certainly you would see a little less participation at the elementary levels just because the population in that building is smaller, and you would see more going all the way up to the high school. So the two questions we're going to focus on this evening are on the master plan and the bond question itself. So first off, we asked all of the individuals who took the survey how they felt about the 4 different pieces of this master plan, which include the safety and security updates, the infrastructure, the junior high, and technology. As you can see here, we had very good response, with over 80% of those taking the survey saying that they said yes, they agreed with the plan. And then you had your unsure and no. Those numbers were low, but we did want to find out why, see what exactly it was that was putting them into those 2 areas. I do have a bit of a breakdown here. Of the 1,300 that answered that question, 135 said they were unsure, 58 said no, that they did not support it. I did go through all of the questions that were, or all the answers, excuse me, that were submitted. There were 36 in total, and I took the top ones that you would see come up pretty regularly. Those are listed in order, so that top bullet point would be the one that was mentioned the most. I'll stay still, that was only about 17 in total, and it gave us a lot of insight into the fact that there were individuals who said, why can't we just do repairs? And this is where a lot of the knowledge that we have learned throughout our process, we need to be able to communicate out to our citizens so they understand why not just adding on to the existing junior high. Moving on to our other question to focus on today is whether or not they support the bond. Good news is, once again, we have over 80% that do support the bond question at a no tax rate increase. Again, we do have a few that are unsure and do not support. Again, those numbers are 135 for unsure and 39 for no. Again, breaking down those responses, only 28 responded, and trying to keep as true to what their message was. Some of them didn't really apply to the bond, but if I did see them a couple of times, I wanted to make sure that I gave them a fair chance up there. But there was concerns of taxes that were already too high, and work in different areas. Again, that do we need a new junior high? So those are the overall answers that we received. I think it is worth noting, though, while we had a great turnout with that 1,300 responses, we did actually have an amazing turnout with our senior citizen community. It was Ms. McLean's idea to put a survey out to our Gold Card members, and it is remarkable the response that we received. Working with GMB and showing them the stacks and stacks of handwritten, filled out, and mailed back responses really shows how dedicated our community is. They may not agree with it, they may need more information, but they took the time to answer the questions. They didn't just check a box, they actually put in answers as to why or what more they wanted to learn, and that right there is just a gift to have our senior sitting community as focused as they are on our schools. But moving forward is also worth noting that this is a sample, again, 1,300. Certainly these are the individuals that are easier for us to reach out to. So there are still community members that we will need to be reaching out to, getting the information to them so they can make the informed decision if we do decide to move forward. Got all of us, so any questions for all of us?
All right, thank you. Very comprehensive. Thank you so much. Every month you have come back to us and we've asked you to keep sort of narrowing the focus and providing more information, and I think this is now at the point where it's up to us to do some real have some real conversation and give you some direction. So I would sort of turn it over to my colleagues here for reflection, and we've had some long conversations with the administration and these folks as well. So who wants to start reflecting? And
I'll go first, Madam President.
Go ahead.
This for me has been a long journey. So I've lived in Clarkston since 1986. My firstborn went to school with a few of your children. First grade, actually kindergarten, the Blue Ribbon Committee came through, and the first attempt in over 25 years of a bond campaign and capital improvement in this community did not pass. I then was a new parent of 2 young kids, third on the way. First grade come around, and a committee called HUG came to be known in Clarkston, which stood for Help Us Grow. And that committee put forth with the then superintendent a long-range plan to work on a multi-year, multi-phase effort to bring up to par our school buildings in this district. At that time, our class sizes were extremely large. Our elementary buildings were bursting at the seams. And we then moved forward for a successful bond campaign, which then built Independence Elementary. That was followed by a bond campaign for renovations to build cafeterias on our buildings, because kids could either go to lunch or go to gym, but couldn't do both in all of our elementary buildings. From there, we then built Independence Elementary in another phase. We renovated the junior high and the middle school a little bit. We then went for the high school in a second attempt past that. I'm saying this because I want you to understand that this information, which all looks very succinct, looks all very potentially purposeful to a lot of you, is very purposeful. Since probably 92, 93, this plan has been in place. And I think this plan has been very well thought out. It's been very steady. It's been very consistent with our values of doing the most we can with the least impact to our taxpayers when it comes to the impact of the millage. And I think we have done an excellent job in doing so. I think the plan that we have, we knew the junior high was a building that we couldn't ignore forever. We knew we had to do something with it down the road. And yeah, we kicked the can a little bit because we had other high priority needs that we had to address first. And we limped along with the renovations at the high school, doing only what we had to do so we weren't throwing good money to bad issues. So for me, this has been a long, long journey as a parent, as a community member, and as a board member, seeing these multi-phase, multi-years approach to what we have as buildings. And I think we have a lot to be very proud of in this district. And I want you also to understand, at least from my perspective, these buildings are a big reason why we have a 5.75% increase in our SUV this year. Our buildings and our schools are one of the #1 predictors of your property taxes. And I think that I think our community sees that value that we've instilled in them, that we've shown them year after year. The refinancing our bonds, the saving and cost avoidance of over $30 million. We've held true to what we said we were going to do, and I think we will continue to do so by finishing out what might be considered one of those final phases.
Thank you, Ms. McGinnis. Anyone on the side, Mr. Need?
I agree with Mrs. McGinnis 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I certainly think it's, managing these assets for our community is certainly an expectation they have, and one of the most important things that that we do. I mean, there are so many facets to this job up here, and we look at lists of air conditioning and locks, and it maybe doesn't seem quite as, I guess, sexy as it might when we have students come in here and we're all grins, but when you talk about the dollars that are involved, it certainly is so important and such a huge responsibility. And I mean, I want more of those students to be able to enjoy more of those opportunities. And so, but for those of you that didn't get to start the evening with us at 6:30, and I mentioned this briefly, when we look at historically how responsibly we have been able to be in terms of making these investments, of having the right team and the right advisors and the right administrators who guide us fiscally to save the kind of money that we've been able to save when we've made these investments over the long term. I mean, I'm very comfortable with the plan that you've brought us, with the advice that you give us, with the approach that's been laid out here. And so I certainly want us to continue to explore this, and I want to let my other colleagues weigh in as well. But I think the next steps that you've laid out here are something we need to keep moving on.
Mr. McNaughton, if we wanted to go for more than $197.5 million and keep the rate at 7 mils, is that possible?
Yes, it is possible. However, the bond term would be longer than 25 years for at least 2 of the series.
So really the point I want to make sure that we as a board understand, I think our community needs to understand, as Mr. Vandergrind came up and really outlined the, I'll say, critical needs, high priority needs, the things that we're really dealing with one way or another in the next 5 years. That list totals $197.5 million, right? We're not maxing out here. We didn't say how much could we go for and how do we back into that. This is sort of an affirmative process. Is that accurate?
Yes, that most recent schedule's table 32A.
Great.
There are a lot of scenarios prepared.
Great, and I appreciate how thorough really our whole team is, because as we've gone through this, I feel like every time you come back, we just ask you to jump through one more hoop. And I hope we've erected all the hoops at this point, and I know there's a lot more work to be done. I mean, we've estimated, we've gone through a lot of the financial calculations in exhaustive fashion, I will say, at this point. I mean, we haven't designed a building yet, but just to even prove the concept, I feel like, given the terrain, given the fact that we're going to have school while we're building a building, while we're using a building, is something you just don't see every day. That's going to be a challenge, and we recognize that challenge, but that's what we need to do, and we've assembled the team, I think, that can do that. And as we talk bonding, and I look at the survey, I'm always reminded that not everybody sits where we sit and gets the information that we would get. Over the years, as I've sat on the school board, I think to myself, well, if everybody had the same information I had in front of me, 9.9 times out of 10, we'd reach the same conclusion. And I think, reminding that the bonding ability that we have comes because we've been fiscally responsible. We've been very conservative in our estimates. We've refinanced when we can refinance. If we can lower an interest rate and save some dollars, if we can avoid some future interest costs, like we've done that every time. And it's not something we can constantly do. The opportunities come up as bonds mature, but that's something we've gone to the well again and again and again as we've been able to, and save significant dollars, which puts us in a position to be able to raise over $197.5 million without raising the rate. And bond projects, again, not everybody sits where we sit and has all the information that we have, although we're going to do our best to make sure everybody has all the information that they could possibly digest. Bonding is for capital projects only, right? I would love to be able to say, hey, we've got some great ideas to increase the programs that we want to deliver. Community, will you support us, and we won't raise the rate, and we'll have better programs. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. We have kind of two sides to what we do here, a capital side and an operational side. And when we talk about building efficiency, a lot of that is saving dollars on the operational side in the future as well. Through our last phases of our master plan, we did a lot of LED lighting. We do that because it saves significant dollars in electric cost. When it comes to insulation, building envelope is a fancy way of saying, how efficient the walls are and how much, we're not heating the building to go outside, or cooling the building to cool the outside. We want to keep our heat and our air inside, and clean and exchanged, and all those safety and security kinds of things. But I'm really excited as we get to this point. As Mrs. Horst, I think, said, air handling units are not the most exciting thing that we deal with as a school board. I'd much rather hear presentations from Destination Imagination kids rather than talk about air handling units. But to get us to a position where we've gone through all of the steps and phases, we started with a master plan in 2016 that looked at everything. I mean, if there was a tile we could look under, I think we looked under it at that point, and we got a good feel for what our needs were, knowing that there are way more needs than we had the ability to tackle them. And to be in kind of phase 2 now, and things are going pretty much to plan of where we expected them to be. We did not invest, as Mr. Vandergrind said, in hard kinds of infrastructure things, knowing that it doesn't make sense to continue to invest in something that doesn't have a usable future to it. So I'm excited that we can finally get to the next phase of it. A lot of times in education, I feel like we start going down a path and we learn some new things and we change direction slightly. This is one of those times when I think it is going to plan exactly as we thought. It is over a long period of time, and I think our entire community and our kids benefit as we assembled our team of experts. We've gone through and talked to our constituent groups. We've talked to our staff. We've talked to the experts in these programs. We don't want to deliver a building and you guys have all worked on and designed buildings in other places. You know, we didn't say, hey, go find us the best junior high out there and bring it here. You know, we said, all right, let's talk about what kind of program we're going to run in Clarkston that you know, is not extravagant. We didn't say, hey, give us the best thing we could have, you know, give us a wish list. It's what's gonna meet our needs. What are those critical needs? You all did that. You came back, and we have a way to make it happen. And so I'm excited for the future and to be a part of that. I'm excited to get our kids in these facilities and using it as we did it last time, and we improved their safety and security. And we increased the space of our educational programs. If our kids are not worried about being safe and secure at school, they're more focused on learning. If our kids are not worried about leaks and heating and cooling and all the things that, you know, your kids have all come home and probably complained about over the years, if we can be done with a lot of those issues and focusing on the teaching and learning, that's really what I think we want to be. So I want to thank you for your efforts. I look forward. I think we're going to vote. Are we ready to vote next time?
No, I mean, here's what I think. I mean, I think everything we have asked for them to provide, they have provided as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I don't really see, you mentioned hoops, right? I don't really see any more hoops for them to jump through. And so what I would like to do is just have a consensus for everyone to take this next step, which would be to send that application to Treasury and to go ahead and meet with Treasury. And so if I have consensus from everyone,
Yes.
I think we can just go ahead and offer our consensus to direct the administration to go ahead and go to Treasury. And then when it comes back, when that, you know, that qualification act comes back, then we have something, something to discuss and vote on.
Yeah, just as a reminder, that's not any kind of final approval. That's a vetting
that's the
process by the
vetting.
state from the Department of Treasury to make sure the numbers match the needs list, that match the prospective costs. So, and I just want to say I appreciate the comments from our board members this evening, and I think the more it comes down to is stewardship. We're all here for a little while, looking over the last 25 years. You know, you grow that there's an expectation by our community for the reflection of the schools to be that of the Clarkston community. And I think we take that seriously. And I think the other big piece that always seems to shine through is that notion of fiscal conservatism in terms of how we progress, both in making sure we pick the right projects to keep everything going moving forward, and that we look at that tax rate as being something we don't really want to we don't want to increase. So I appreciate both aspects really shining through in the board this evening.
I mean, is everyone in agreement? We've asked for the critical needs. We asked for no, way to fund it. We asked for it not to carry a tax rate increase, and I think they've given us that. So
I agree.
I don't really see any other hoop they could jump through at this point.
President Horst, I'd just like to add one more clarification and piggyback on what Dr. Ryan just said regarding stewardship and fiduciary responsibility. Back in 2012, this district was an inaugural member of the National Green Ribbon Award. And that award honored our work in energy and sustainability. Remember, that's when we learned about the cost avoidance of those new air conditioning units that were being put up on the buildings so we could avoid the costs of those engines running the entire time and the new air handler units or whatever they were. So we've been ahead of the curve when it comes to maintaining our stewardship of the responsibility of these buildings and the fiduciary responsibility of the cost that's going to go into maintaining these buildings. And again, I want to just show that it's evident back in 2012, we were an inaugural Green Ribbon school nationwide. And I know that at that time, we were actually out training and educating other Oakland County schools or other schools in the state to how to become more sustainably energy efficient in their districts by sharing the wisdom and the knowledge that our staff had already gained so that other districts could get those statuses also.
So board, do I have consensus from the board to direct the administration to move forward with the meeting with Treasury?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Ryan, please move forward with that, and when that application comes back, then we can discuss on whether or not we want to take the next steps.
Okay, so
Okay.
it'll be midsummer.
Great. All right, then we'll look forward to that midsummer. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, for your continued work. All right, item 9 is citizen comments. Citizens are welcome to address the board on any topic at this point. And I only had one citizen from earlier tonight. Ms. Allen, could you peek over at that blue sheet and see if anyone else had signed up during the course of the meeting? No? Okay. Mr. Parkin, we're happy to hear from you at this point. And as usual, we have our routine now, don't we, sir? You'll state your name and address, and we'll have 2 minutes.
Tim Parkin, 9100 Michigamme. If I were to ask everyone here tonight to estimate the width of this podium, there'd be several opinions. If I were to measure the podium using this tape measure, the tape measure then becomes the truth, and at that point, we all have the opportunity to either agree or to dispute the truth by attacking, denouncing, labeling, or limiting the use of the tape measure. One could proceed to convince others that the tape measure, or anyone owning a tape measure, is systematically oppressive. While most parents teach children to respect law enforcement, Dr. J. Marks, Oakland County Schools 6-figure salary DEI consultant, teaches our students to distrust our first responders by asking students to imagine a world where African American males could walk down the street of any community without the fear of being gunned down in many instances by those who are there to serve and protect. Now, any rational thinking adult knows this is not true. One does not need a doctorate degree to perform a quick search on the Department of Justice website to discover this statement is far from the truth. I find it interesting, after studying far too many of Dr. Mark's DEI training videos, that this particular statement is used only in front of students, but never with adults. It must be easier to sell this nonsense to the innocent who have not yet developed critical thinking skills or have not yet acquired the proper use of a tape measure. Dr. Marks is obviously confident that the woke virtue signaling school boards and educators would never question the expert consultant. One can only conclude this is how this person was allowed access to our Clarkson students and to violate our culture of respect. By denouncing DEI being taught to our educators and children, the Clarkson School Board has the opportunity to end up on the right side of history, so that when their grandchildren ask them what side they were on during this ridiculous and embarrassing period of our country's history, they can proudly say, "We defended our students and community." As for me, I'll tell my grandchildren what side of the podium I was on.
Thank you.
And that the truth remains undefeated. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments tonight. All right. Item 10 is information items. Our next Board of Education meeting will be Monday, June 13th. We'll start at 5:30 with a workshop regarding our strategic plan. At 6:30, we'll have our annual public hearing regarding the 2022-23 budget, and our regular board meeting at 7 p.m. Item 11 is adjournment. May I have a motion, please?
Move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming this evening.